Welcome back to GeoScope. For centuries, the Arctic was a symbol of isolation, a vast frozen wilderness at the top of the world, dismissed as impenetrable and irrelevant to the great power games played in warmer climates. But the ice is melting, and the most profound geopolitical shifts often don't announce themselves with the blast of a missile. They unfold quietly, in the overlooked corners of our planet, where the maps of power are being redrawn. Today we decode one such front line, a theater of operations emerging from the thaw, shaping the next century of global competition. The world's attention, understandably, is held captive. Daily headlines are dominated by the brutal warfare in Ukraine, a conflict that has reshaped European security. Our screens are filled with the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, a flashpoint with deep historical roots, and we watch with bated breath the simmering tensions across the Taiwan Strait, where the rivalry between the United States and China threatens to boil over. These are the fires that demand our focus, consuming diplomatic energy and media bandwidth. Yet while these critical conflicts rage, Moscow has been methodically executing a long-term strategic gambit. It's redrawing a battlefield not with tanks but with steel and nuclear power across the ice. Deep within the Arctic Circle, Russia is leveraging its immense geography, a coastline stretching over 24,000 kilometers, to build a new fortress. This isn't a reaction to recent events, it's the culmination of a decades-long ambition, now accelerated by a warming climate and a new era of confrontation with the West. What was once dismissed as lifeless ice is now the foundation of Russia's newest power lever. The evidence is undeniable. Dozens of Soviet-era military sites have been reopened and modernized, creating a chain of fortified ports and airfields. This is backed by the world's only fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers, guaranteeing year-round access. Above, a sophisticated web of new radar stations and air defense systems creates a digital shield, monitoring all movement. And beneath the ice lies the ultimate prize, an estimated 30% of the world's undiscovered gas and 13% of its oil, alongside vast deposits of critical minerals, the resources to fuel Russia's economy for decades. But Russia is not the only player. Beijing has declared itself a near-Arctic state, investing in its Polar Silk Road in partnership with Moscow. In response, NATO is slowly awakening, conducting larger military exercises, but its focus remains divided. The stakes couldn't be higher. This isn't just about military bases and shipping lanes, it's about the fragile Arctic ecosystem, the future of indigenous communities, and the potential for a new arms race. The Arctic is no longer an afterthought, it's the cold edge of tomorrow's geopolitics. Let's dive in. Russia's push into the Arctic isn't an overnight phenomenon. It's a story etched in decades of strategic calculus, ambition, and national identity. The foundation was laid during the Soviet era, with nuclear icebreakers carving paths through the frozen north, establishing a military and scientific presence that was unparalleled. After the Soviet collapse, these outposts fell into disrepair, symbols of a diminished power. But what we're witnessing today is not just a revival, it's a complete reimagining of the Arctic's role in Russia's 21st century grand strategy. This is the culmination of a meticulously executed plan, outlined in Russia's Arctic Strategy 2035, a blueprint designed to transform the region from a desolate frontier into the nation's strategic and economic heartland. For years, this buildup proceeded quietly. While global attention was fixated on conflicts in Ukraine and the Middle East, Moscow capitalized on the world's diverted gaze. This strategic misdirection allowed for an unprecedented and largely unchecked fortification of its vast northern coastline. The Northern Sea Route, or NSR, became the centerpiece. Moscow began methodically transforming this once seasonal shipping lane into a year-round, state-controlled maritime corridor. This wasn't just about adding a few guard posts. It was a systematic overhaul involving a network of dual-use facilities. New deep-water ports capable of servicing both colossal LNG tankers and nuclear submarines began to appear. Soviet-era airfields, long abandoned to the elements, were reactivated and extended to accommodate strategic bombers and advanced fighter jets. The scale of this undertaking is staggering. The backbone of this strategy is Russia's unrivaled icebreaker fleet. With over 50 vessels, including the world's only fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers, Russia can guarantee year-round access to the NSR when other nations are locked out by ice. But this commercial enabler is protected by a formidable military shield stretched across 24,000 kilometers. A string of military installations has been built or refurbished, from the sprawling port of Murmansk, home to the Northern Fleet, to remote outposts like the Arctic Trefoil Base on Alexandra Land. These bases are not just dots on a map, they are nodes in a sophisticated anti-access/area denial network. They host advanced S-400 air defense missiles, Bastion coastal defense systems armed with supersonic anti-ship missiles, and a chain of new-generation radar stations. Beneath the waves, a network of hydroacoustic sensors monitors submarine movements, creating a comprehensive surveillance bubble over the entire region. But to see this as purely military is to miss the point. This isn't just about steel, it's about economic survival and national identity. The Arctic is a treasure trove, already accounting for over 80% of Russia's natural gas and 17% of its oil. This resource wealth is the engine of the state, fueling 7.5% of its GDP and 11% of its exports. The Kremlin's projections are ambitious. By 2035, the Arctic is expected to generate over $160 billion in tax revenue, a vital lifeline for a state grappling with international sanctions. And then there's the grand prize: control over a new global shipping artery. As climate change thins the Arctic ice, the NSR is becoming a viable alternative to traditional waterways. Shipping surged to nearly 38 million tons in 2024. The appeal is obvious. The route can cut the journey between Asia and Europe by up to 40%, saving time, fuel, and avoiding choke points like the Suez Canal. Moscow is actively marketing the NSR as a secure and efficient alternative, leveraging its control over essential icebreaker escorts and navigation services. For nations like China, which promotes a polar Silk Road, partnering with Russia here is a key strategic objective. This is Russia's Great Arctic Gambit, a fusion of military might, economic necessity, and geopolitical ambition designed to project power and reshape the flow of global trade for the century to come. The promise of the Northern Sea Route is as simple as it is revolutionary. It slashes shipping time between Europe and Asia by up to 40%. A voyage that once took a grueling 35 days via the Suez Canal can now be completed in just 20, saving immense amounts of fuel, time, and money. For centuries, this was the frozen dream of explorers, a fabled Northeast Passage sought after but never conquered. Today, a warming climate and advanced technology are turning that historical fantasy into a tangible and highly contested economic reality. But this emerging maritime superhighway is far from a global commons. It runs almost entirely through Russia's exclusive economic zone, and Moscow is leveraging its geography to the fullest. Citing Article 234 of the UN Law of the Sea, Russia claims the right to enforce strict, non-negotiable regulations in its ice-covered Arctic waters to prevent marine pollution. This isn't just a suggestion, it's a mandate. Every single ship, regardless of its flag, must obtain a permit, prove it meets stringent ice-class structural standards, and critically pay for the escort of a Russian icebreaker. This is where Russia's unique advantage becomes clear. It operates the world's only fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers, behemoths managed by the state corporation Rosatom, which act as the gatekeepers to the entire route. The economic implications are staggering. Traffic exploded from a modest 4 million tons in 2014 to a colossal 38 million in 2024, and the Kremlin has set an audacious goal of 150 million tons by 2030. This surge is primarily fueled by Russia's own vast natural resources. Liquefied natural gas from the massive Yamal and Arctic LNG-2 projects makes up the lion's share, destined for energy-hungry markets in Asia. Other nations are taking notice, particularly China, which has declared the route a polar Silk Road, a vital component in its global trade strategy. Yet the path to dominance is paved with ice and uncertainty. The Arctic remains a formidable environment. Even as the ice recedes, its behavior is unpredictable and the navigation window is short. Western sanctions remain a significant obstacle designed to stifle the investment and technology needed for Arctic development. Furthermore, the risks drive up operational costs. Insurance premiums are sky-high, reflecting the lack of search and rescue infrastructure and the catastrophic potential of an oil spill in this pristine ecosystem. This complex web of opportunity and risk reveals the NSR's true nature. For Russia, it is far more than a commercial shortcut. It's a cornerstone of its 21st century strategic vision. In times of peace, it accelerates commerce and fuels the national budget. But in times of crisis, absolute control over this critical artery becomes a powerful bargaining chip, a geopolitical lever to influence the global flow of goods and energy, ensuring the world pays attention to the master of the Arctic. Russia supplies the geography, China supplies the money. Once ridiculed as a near-Arctic state, Beijing turned the phrase into policy. Through its Polar Silk Road, China finances ports, fiber optics, LNG projects, and shipping tests via COSCO. These aren't science experiments, they're influence building under the Belt and Road Initiative. For Moscow, Chinese capital softens sanctions. For Beijing, the Arctic route sidesteps choke points like Suez and Malacca. Together, they tighten a grip the West can't easily match. For years, NATO treated the Arctic as an afterthought. While Moscow built permanent bases and icebreaker fleets, NATO rotated troops and ran drills. No unified strategy, no permanent infrastructure. By 2024, the West finally rang alarm bells, but Russia already held the high ground. The Arctic Council froze amid tensions. Insurers adapted faster than governments, and European ports braced for trade diversion. Beneath the ice lies power, an estimated 90 B barrels of oil, 670 trillion cubic feet of gas, plus nickel and rare earths. Whoever controls access wields global leverage. Moscow's shadow fleet, backed by nuclear icebreakers, moves sanctioned oil beyond regulators' reach. Unlike tanks or missiles, this dominance is quiet but decisive. Each port, icebreaker, and mineral deal tightens Russia's grip. Climate change only gives them more room to expand. This is no accident. Russia built sovereignty where the West built speeches. China injected capital where others saw frozen seas. Together, they turned the Arctic into a geopolitical lever. Can the West adapt in time, or has the Arctic already slipped permanently under a Russian-Chinese grip? Because in today's world, power doesn't just shift with missiles. It shifts with icebreakers, contracts, and shipping lanes, and the ice is already moving.